Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are finally looking at the long-awaited SH Figuarts Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan Gogeta. This is a worldwide premiere. I am absolutely sure nobody else has reviewed this yet. This is definitely the first time anybody's seen this figure in hand, and not late by months at all, I'm sure. Definitely not the case. No, of course, I'm only kidding. I know this is probably the last time anybody's going to look at this figure because my orders got canceled and then I had to wait for the North American distribution, which is a good thing in some ways. This figure is slightly different than the ones which shipped originally, which made it to the Japanese market before here. So that's kind of interesting. Nothing that you would notice if you weren't somebody like me, but they are slightly different in some finishing and some joint tolerances and things like that, which could be intentional or not, who knows, but either way, we're looking at it now. And I have some stuff to say. This is kind of an interesting figure. There's definitely some stuff to talk about, which you may not have even heard from other people. I don't know. I don't watch other reviews, but I might have some new information for you, so stick around. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands to the top of his hair 6.5 inches, which makes him just about 16.5 centimeters. If you wanted to estimate his actual height, it's closer to 14, like where his head would stop if he didn't have poofy hair, and that's going to be about 5.5 inches if you're looking for scaling. That's going to be more helpful for you. So speaking of scaling, let's go ahead and grab a couple other guys real quick, just so that we can do some comparisons so that you're aware of what we're looking at. I'm gonna pick a couple which are relatively relevant here. You can see, proportionally speaking, things are very different across these two figures. Maybe you can't, but they are. And that's kind of interesting. We're not going to get into that kind of stuff because I could spend days talking about things like that. Most people aren't going to know what the heck I'm talking about anyway. But you can see some things are different. We have some with bigger chests or upper bodies and some with bigger lower bodies, and it's just kind of interesting. And then because this one's a lot more relevant than these two, there is Mr. Compensation himself, Broly. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull these two out of the way. If parts are interchangeable, it's probably not easily done. None of the colors match for the skin anyway, so I wouldn't really recommend that. But if you really wanted to do it, you have to be prepared to do some modification. So there's our size difference. It's significant and lovely because Broly's such a cool figure. Alright, size comparison aside, it's time to talk about the aesthetics. And this guy is probably the most appealing figure that they've released outside of Broly's and Boo's. Of all the Saiyans and other characters, again, not counting Broly, either version of Boo, this guy's fantastic. It looks really, really good. It's highly accurate, depending on which scene you look at. Unfortunately, some scenes are highly inaccurate, both in the color of the belt. Sometimes it's a different color, but this is fine. And sometimes in the face, believe it or not. These are actual stills from the movie. That one just looks really bad in general. It doesn't look anything like any character ever in Dragon Ball. And then there's this one, which makes him look incredibly similar to Adam West from Family Guy. So we're not going to use those stills. We're going to go just based on general what it looks like when it doesn't look weird on single frame images, and it's highly, highly accurate. Very well done, and I am exceptionally pleased with that. So now let's go ahead and talk about the specifics of the actual build of the figure. We do have shading in the pants. It's not as precise as it could be, but it's there, and it does look good. I want to say there's maybe a little bit of shading in this belt here. It's kind of hard to say because the sculpt is very, very contrasty. There's lots of lows and lots of highs, so it could just be shadows. Hard to say. Maybe there's no coloring. I can't quite tell, but either way, it looks good. The skin, I don't see any shading on the skin. If it's there, it's incredibly subtle. I don't see any shading anywhere else, in fact, except for the hair. So minimal shading, but you don't really need it because we are looking at a lot of different colors here. We have the grays and the yellows and the flesh tone and then the blue and then the tan and then the blue and then more blue and pearly blue and lots of color. Personally, I don't mind the hair like this. I think I prefer if it was just painted more along the lines of, not in this candy corn variety, but this is a good example of flat colors with shading. I kind of like that. It looks a lot more animated. The metallic, I don't know. I kind of like it and I kind of don't like it at the same time. But either way, it looks good in terms of how it was applied. That's fine. And so then the other thing we need to talk about is, does it have Gotenks syndrome? No, the chest is all molded in skin tone. This is a separate piece added on top, so that's good. The chest and abdomen and arms all match reasonably well. I mean, you're never going to get it perfect with different materials, but it all looks pretty good. And then we have the issue with the collar, like Gotenks. These are molded in yellow. This is not. This is painted yellow, so it doesn't match. The yellow does not match at all. Normal people probably won't even notice, though. And when I say that, I mean that in a nice way, not in a negative way. I'm not a normal person. I understand that. But that's why I'm doing this. I mean, that's why my reviews are what they are. So that's okay. But the yellow is definitely different. It's more dark and it's shiny, and these are not that, so it does stand out a little bit. But all in all, aesthetically speaking, this thing is fantastic, and you can adjust the way he's kind of relaxed or not relaxed depending on how you have him posed pretty easily. So aesthetics on this guy are great. 9 out of 10. All right, okay, on to the accessories. We have a couple different heads. We have the head with black hair and then one face that goes with it, which looks pretty good. It's one of the more accurate faces we've seen from them. The SH Figuarts line is known for not quite being very accurate in the face department, especially. It's got a lot more of a soft look compared to the anime, and this one still looks pretty good. And then we have the blue hair one, which is fine. And then we have 3 different heads for the blue hair one, which they look good. So we have the neutral head, which looks pretty good. We have the smirking head, which also looks pretty good. And then we have the yelling head, which looks really good. And then for hands, we have 2 fist hands, 2 martial arts hands, 2 clenchy hands, and then 2 wide open hands. And that's it for accessories. So no blast effects or anything like that, but we do get faces and hands and heads. So it's not a bad array. So I'm going to say 7 out of 10, especially for this line. It's not impressive, but it's good enough. It will do. Oh man, this figure just looks good, especially from a downward angle, just like that a little bit. He looks so good. Okay, on to the articulation. We do have one carryover from Gotenks. Look at that. The face falls off, and it definitely falls off when you lean the head forward, and it will fall off more than that too as you're handling it. That is freaking annoying. Luckily, it'll stay on like if you're not handling it, so it's not like it's just gonna fall off on your shelf. But holy crap, is that annoying. I just told my buddy, actually, we were just talking about this figure. It's like the best figure that's also bad at the same time, and we'll get into some other issues that aren't so good about it, but it's awesome and also bad. It's very strange. But anyway, so this is a problem because look at the little tiny ball hinge in there, which shouldn't be a ball hinge and shouldn't be situated the way it's situated. You have no room to move anything because the ball hinge is so much smaller than everything around it. As soon as you move things, they fall off. And especially since it's the way it's positioned on the head itself, you have no room to move the head forward. As soon as you do, it pops it off. It's more noticeable on this side because the peg seems to be a little less tight. But that's a bummer. So posing the head is a total pain in the ass. I guess they did it so you could lean back, but you can't lean back anyway because of the collar and the hair. So really all you can do on this guy is side to side. You can lean it a little bit. That's using just the ball peg. If you want to lean it sideways properly, you can turn that ball hinge, but it still doesn't have much range. So to sacrifice the face falling off to give him better range, which can't be used anyway, just doesn't make sense to me. I don't get that. That's not good. Should be a double ball peg. Neck is on a ball peg and it moves around pretty well, so that's okay. I like that. Shoulders, you can see in there, we have a ball peg connecting the shoulder to the butterfly joint, which is actually a pretty good butterfly joint. It's not especially ugly, and it gives you decent range, and then these can still hide it a little bit. Although I don't really like the way that works, because once you move the arm forward, these don't really line up very well. So it could be better, but you still get a really good range. So that's getting into it a little bit more technical than most people need me to. So ball peg for the shoulder fits into the ball or to the butterfly just fine. Here's the downside about this butterfly joint. They left a lot of the shirt on there. They didn't need that because this hides it anyway. That's going to be there. But this shirt right here limits the range you can get with the shoulder. You can't raise it up any higher than that. Even if you drop it down, it just doesn't go any higher. So if that wasn't there, you could raise the arms up much higher. So even like Awakening Goku has much better range than this, and for no real reason. So that's a bit of a bummer, but you do still get full rotation, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, minimal range. Again, Awakening Goku, much better range in the elbows, basically the same sculpt, so that's a bummer. Ball hinges for the wrists are fine. For the upper torso, we have a ball peg with a little tiny hinge, kind of like a lever that lifts the ball peg up and down. So you can get some better range. It can get very gappy. Obviously, that's just me stretching it up, but you can lean him forward, and it works pretty well. It's not bad. It leans pretty far forward. Zoom out a little bit so you can see better. And then it's not too gappy in the back because they built it up pretty far. And then when you lean him back, though, that's not good. So you want to make sure when you're leaning him back, you squash him down as much as you can, and it still doesn't work very well. So that's definitely a problem. Leaning side to side does work pretty nicely, and you can rotate it well enough. But you do get a lot of congestion in here, not from the jacket. Inside the chest, there's a couple of notches in there that have pegs that hold everything together, and there's one in the back as well. And if you don't trim those, they get in the way a lot. And then even this part right here, the two parts of the abdomen bump into each other very easily if you're not very careful when you're posing him. So if you wanted to, and I'm not recommending this because do it at your own risk, if you pop this apart, you can trim out some of those things a little bit, and you'll have much better range and much better posability. Even if it doesn't create a lot of a gap, it's not going to bind, and that'll help. But then for the lower torso, we have a ball peg, which lets it move around just fine, and full rotation. The belt is actually a soft piece this time, which is a huge improvement over what they've done in the past with the hard pieces, so that's great. This is on a swivel, so you can pose it as however you need to for posing. And this belt being soft, other than just being cool for the swivel, you can raise the legs up as far as you want, and the belt will just flex and not get in the way. So you can pretty much pose him doing a high kick standing straight up, and it's fine. I love it. They did a really good job with that. This guy's hips are fantastic. They go forward and back completely, all the way out to the side completely. I mean, as much as is reasonable. It's really nice. Thigh swivels are good. So I mentioned this newer batch of figures that made it to the North American distribution. They have much better hips, it seems, than the earlier ones. They do bind as you pull them out because this piece right here is angular, but they don't have that issue where they pop off at all or get loose as far as I can tell. That's really good. Very nice hip design. For the knees, it's basically what we've seen before. Not the best knee in the world, but it's definitely not the worst. Good enough range. For the ankles, it's either a double or a single. I'm not sure, and I haven't popped it off. It's a double. So let's see. Does it go very far forward? No, it still doesn't. That's still a bad design. Doesn't go that far back either. It does lean in far enough, so I do like that. So that's pretty cool. And then we have a toe hinge, which is okay. Only downside here is that they sculpted these little, whatever you want to call these wraps on the bottom to have the cutout for the foot so that the foot sticks out to the side, which drives me nuts. But ultimately, guys, the articulation on this figure is solid. It's not really good. These guys are on ball pegs, by the way, that pop off if you're not careful. It's not really good. We have issues in the neck, significant issues in the neck. Some issue in the shoulder. The elbows don't have much better than 90-degree range. The abdominal section isn't actually all that good. The only thing that's exceptional on this guy in terms of articulation is the hips. Really nice hips. And I guess the way the belt allows that to work. So that's why I said this figure's awesome, but at the same time, it's not great. Like the articulation on him, for no reason in many cases, is not better than some of the other figures. So that's definitely a bummer. But it's still fine. It's just not up to SH Figuarts standards in some cases. So I'm still going to give it, articulation-wise, an 8 out of 10. I mean, it's still really good. It's just not really, really good. It could be a lot better for not changing much. It would have been no problem at all for them to make it better. But ultimately, it's still a really, really solid figure. The only thing that perpetually bothers me is the face falling off. Everything else is fine. And like I said, he looks fantastic. Easily easily the best looking Saiyan figures we've gotten out of all of them. By far, it is great. So final verdict is 8 out of 10. I wanted to give it a higher one, but having issues like the face falling off and 90-degree elbows and things like that, just, you know, we had to be real here. I know it's a cool character and everybody loves it and it's Dragon Ball and oh, it's awesome, but we have to be honest here when we're doing reviews especially. There are problems, and this not being painted that well, that's all a problem. So it could be better. It is still really good. Like I said, other than the Boos and Brolys, it's probably the best one they've released. So I definitely recommend it, guys. I think you should probably pick it up. It's an 8 out of 10 easily, and I think you'll enjoy it. And it's still in stock at Big Bad Toy Store. Use the link in the description if you want to buy one. They're there. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, go ahead and give it a thumbs down. That's fine too. In fact, it's a good thing if you do that as far as YouTube's concerned. So go for it. Knock yourself out. And I do have new videos up just about every single day, so make sure you come back for that. And I have like 3,000 videos on the channel just waiting for you to watch. So come back for those. And in the meantime, keep collecting.